The air itself seemed to crackle with an unknown dread. Across the vast, sprawling lands of 5th century Europe, a name was whispered. Attila, leader of the Huns, a force of nature, it was said, unleashed from the wild, untamed east. His horsemen were a whirlwind, a terrifying, unstoppable tide. They swept across borders, leaving fear and devastation in their wake. Civilizations that had stood for centuries felt a tremor. The old order was teetering. Was this man merely a savage? A barbarian chieftain driven by an insatiable thirst for plunder and destruction? That's what his enemies, the Romans, wanted the world to believe. But history, when you dig into it, is rarely so simple. To understand Attila, you have to understand where he came from. The Huns, a people shrouded in mystery even then. They were nomads, born to the saddle. Their home was the vast windswept expanse of the Eurasian steppes, a harsh, unforgiving land that bred harsh, unforgiving people. They lived by the horse for the horse. Their archery was legendary, their mobility terrifying. Attila himself steps onto the stage of history around the 430s AD. He shared power with his brother Bleda. Together they inherited the leadership of a Hunnic confederation already formidable, already a thorn in Rome's side. But shared rule, it seems, was not Attila's destiny. With Bleda gone, Attila stood alone. With his power consolidated, Attila turned his gaze south and east, towards the glittering prize of the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, Constantinople, a city of legendary wealth protected by formidable walls. But its provinces, stretching through the Balkans, were vulnerable, and Attila knew it. He launched a series of devastating raids, not just quick incursions for loot, but sustained campaigns. Campaigns designed to break the will of the Eastern Emperor, Theodosius II. Cities fell: Nisus, Serdica, Marcianople. Once thriving Roman centers were sacked, burned. The stories that trickled back to Constantinople spoke of unimaginable brutality, but also of a chilling efficiency. Attila's armies moved with a speed that confounded Roman generals. They laid siege with a skill that belied their nomadic origins. The Eastern Romans, for all their sophistication, struggled to cope. The price of peace was high. Theodosius II, desperate to stop the bleeding, agreed to pay enormous sums of gold. The year is 451 AD. Attila, his coffers swelled with Eastern gold, his armies battle-hardened, turns his attention to the Western Roman Empire, an empire already creaking under its own internal pressures, barbarian incursions and political instability. His pretext for invasion was complex. A disputed claim to the hand of Honoria, sister of the Western Emperor Valentinian III. She had, in desperation or ambition, sent Attila her ring. He chose to interpret it as a marriage proposal, demanding half the Western Empire as her dowry. A demand designed to be rejected, a demand designed to justify war. His invasion of Gaul, modern-day France, was a torrent. Cities like Metz were razed. Orléans was besieged. Terror spread before him like a contagion. It seemed nothing could stop the Hunnic advance. But the West, for all its weaknesses, found a moment of unity. Aetius, the Roman general, a man who knew the Huns, had even lived among them, forged a fragile alliance. Romans, Visigoths, Franks, Burgundians, Alans, old enemies standing together against a common existential threat. The two colossal armies met on the Catalonian plains. It was a bloodbath. The very next year, 452 AD, Attila returned. He had licked his wounds, rebuilt his strength. This time his target was the heartland of the Western Empire, Italy. He swept down through the Julian Alps. The cities of northern Italy felt his wrath. Aquileia, a major port and fortress, was besieged, captured, and utterly obliterated. So complete was its destruction that, it was said, its very foundations were ploughed over. Milan, Pavia, they too fell or submitted, their treasures plundered, their people terrified. The road to Rome lay open. Panic gripped the ancient capital. Emperor Valentinian III fled from Ravenna to Rome, but offered little in the way of effective resistance. The Roman armies were depleted, demoralized. Aetius, the hero of the Catalonian plains, seemed unable to conjure another miracle. It felt as if the end was nigh for Rome itself. An embassy was sent from Rome to meet Attila, led not by a general but by a bishop, Pope Leo I. They met near the river Mincio. Whatever the reason, Attila turned back. Attila did not live long to ponder his next move. His end came not on the battlefield, not at the hands of a Roman legionary or a rival chieftain. It came suddenly, unexpectedly. In 453 AD, the year after his Italian campaign, he had taken a new bride, a beautiful Gothic princess named Ildiko. There was a great feast, much celebration, much wine. The next morning, Attila was found dead in his wedding tent, lying in a pool of his own blood. No wounds, no signs of a struggle, just dead. The cause of his death remains a mystery. The official Hunnic account, as relayed by the historian Priscus, was a massive nosebleed, but whispers and rumours abounded. Was he poisoned, murdered by his new bride Ildiko, perhaps acting on behalf of her people or even Roman interests? The truth is lost, buried with him in his secret triple-nested coffin of gold, silver and iron. For centuries, the image of Attila was fixed, frozen in the horrified chronicles of his Roman adversaries. He was the epitome of the savage, the barbarian at the gates, a monstrous figure leading a demonic horde intent only on pillage, slaughter, and the downfall of civilization. This was the narrative that served Rome. It dehumanized the enemy. It justified their own struggles, their own failures. If Attila was a divine scourge, then resisting him was a holy act, and succumbing to him, perhaps a deserved punishment. This framing was powerful. It shaped Western perception for over 1,000 years. Think of the language used. Scourge of God. It's not a neutral term. It's laden with theological weight. It implies a force beyond mere human agency. It paints Attila as an instrument of divine wrath, rather than a man with his own ambitions, his own strategies, his own political goals. The stories told about him emphasized his cruelty, his ugliness, his alien nature. He was described as short, squat, with a large head, a swarthy complexion, small, deep-set eyes, a flat nose, and a sparse beard. So we return to the central question. Attila the Hun, was he simply a barbarian warlord, a destructive force that swept across Europe, leaving only ruins in his wake? Or was he something more? A brilliant leader, a cunning strategist, a nation-builder who understood the complex geopolitics of his time? The truth, as is so often the case with figures of this magnitude, likely lies somewhere in the messy, complicated middle. He was undoubtedly brutal. The suffering his campaigns inflicted was immense, undeniable. Cities were razed, populations displaced or slaughtered. Fear was his currency. Yet to dismiss him as merely a barbarian is to ignore the evidence of his considerable abilities. He took a loose confederation of nomadic tribes and forged it into an empire that could challenge and often defeat the most powerful states of the age. This required more than just savagery. It required charisma, it required organizational skill, it required a vision. However ruthless, his diplomatic maneuvers, his ability to play the Eastern and Western Roman empires off against each other, his strategic decisions to withdraw from Gaul and Italy when circumstances dictated, these point to a mind capable of sophisticated calculation. He was a product of his time and his people. The Huns were warriors. Their society was geared towards warfare, towards mobility, towards extracting resources from those more settled, more civilized. Attila was the ultimate expression of that culture.